Welcome everyone to the fourth and final night of carve-con. My name is Culliver Krantz, the creator of the FrightVision middle grade book series, a spooky kids adventure series that all starts because of a coin. But tonight, we are here with a night unlike any of the other carve-con events. Tonight will feature the content completely created by kids. To start off, when I first came up with the idea for carve-con months ago, it was all based on the idea that I wanted to create an engaging way for kids to be part of FrightVision and to have a memorable Halloween still, given that everything is completely different here in 2020. So I came up with the idea for, sure, a 1,000 word spooky short story written by a kid who's 8 to 12 years old. Nothing really different there. However, the twist that we added was that the winning short stories would be read by spooky authors or other people connected to the book industry. And so I started reaching out to all of these incredible authors, and they were all on board. It was so awesome, the response that I got. And it's so great to be able to team with authors that have been on my bookshelf for years. And now you, kids, 8 to 12 years old, have the opportunity to have your story read by one of them. How cool is that? So tonight will be a night unlike any other. You'll get to see and hear from some of your favorite authors. But instead of you reading their books, they're going to be reading your stories. And so sit back and relax, because the kids have got you covered. And so tonight, on the last night of carve-con, we will hear from the top 22 stories from the writing contest. But the first one that we are going to listen to is written by a kid who's very special to the FrightVision series, because over the summer we created the first FrightVision writing contest for kids, and the winning story was published at the back of the 8th book in the FrightVision series, Broken Hearts. And so that winning story was written by a young man named Trent, who's 10 years old. And it is published at the very end of Broken Hearts. And Trent really graciously signed this copy for me. So this copy sits on my bookshelf, and I'm very appreciative of it. And so to begin this writing contest, we are going to start with the beginning of all of our writing contests. And Samantha Flores, the author of Broken Hearts here with me, will be reading Trent's story. So let's get everything going and let the nightmares begin.
Hi everyone, I'm Samantha Flores, the author of the Broken Hearts story in the FrightVision series. Today I'm excited to get to read to you all. The story I get to read is actually super special to me because it was written by Trent from the last writing contest, and his story is actually printed at the back of my book. How cool is that? So let's hear what Trent's story has for us in store today. The Night of the Living Elves. My name is Matt. I'm 12 years old. I like my family. It's just that they bug me sometimes, especially because I have a 6-year-old brother named Todd. Todd is the baby of the family, and boy does he act like one. He is always getting into my stuff. Once he spilled a whole cup of juice on my favorite comic book. Oof. My mom, of course, was on his side. Todd doesn't know any better. Haven't you already read that comic book 100 times? Was her reply. It was December 19th, and our family was a little behind in getting ready for the holidays. We hadn't put up our tree yet, and to make things worse, our neighbor, Mr. Calvin, would come over every evening at 6:30 exactly to lecture my parents about how we needed to get going on the decorations. This guy was obsessed with Christmas, to put it lightly. It was his mission in life to make our neighborhood the merriest place outside of the North Pole. This This man drove my dad crazy on a normal day, but around Christmas it was the worst. Dad had finally had it, and he left the house with the slam of the front door. When he got back, he stepped out of his truck with a smile on his face and as jolly as Santa Claus. "Thanks, Dad," my brother and I both yelled. There was a huge Christmas tree tied to the top of the big red truck. Dad said, "Matt and Todd, I have something to show you. These two little elves came with the tree." The man at the Christmas tree farm didn't say anything about them, but when I was strapping the tree to the top of the old red, I saw them there clinging to the tree. "There's one for each of you." He laid the two elf dolls out on the table in front of us. They had rosy cheeks, pointy noses, a large happy grins. They didn't look like the elf dolls that I had seen at my friends' houses. Normal elves had red clothes, but these dolls had red and green striped outfits. Their faces looked a little different too. They were so happy, it almost seemed real. It's a wonder that you saw them on that big tree before you drove off," said my mom. "I know. It's almost like they were calling my name." We named them Peppermint and Elfie. A few days later, as I went downstairs, I noticed that things were looking much more like Christmas. The tree was up, the decorations were around the house, the lights were strung outside the window. Mr. Calvin was coming over less often, so we all thought things were getting better. Still tired, I went over to the pantry to get some breakfast. Suddenly, I stopped and froze. The pantry was trashed. The food was all over the floor. The drinks were spilled, and sitting on top of the whole mess was cheesy smiles on their faces. I can read, I promise. Peppermint and Elfie. I was too stunned to move. Then, quicker than a blink, Peppermint jumped up, smacked me in the face. "Oh!" I shouted and staggered back in pain. Peppermint's smile seemed to grow and turned from happy to devilish. I know it was bad, but I picked up Peppermint and threw him up in the air, and as he came down, I kicked him. Nice. Just then, my parents decided it was a good time to come downstairs. "Matt, what did you do?" Dad yelled. I stopped. "You trashed the pantry and kicked Peppermint." I didn't know what to do, so I just nodded. Dad's eyes narrowed as he said, "You will be the one who picks up this mess." "But," I pleaded, but Dad raised his hand to silence me. "Not another word," Dad said, so I spent the next few hours cleaning the pantry while the elves stared at me with their creepy grins. I went to bed with endless thoughts in my head. I woke up to the sound of someone yelling. It was Todd. "No!" I ran into his room. Mom and Dad came a few seconds later. Todd's room was trashed. Mom and Dad were staring at me, shaking their heads. "Maddie, what did you do this time?" "Wait, me?" I saw the two elves perched on Todd's dresser watching. Dad pointed to the rug on Todd's bed. There were words written sloppily in mark on the carpet that said, "Matt was here." I stood there, shocked, bewildered. I tried to explain, but my parents didn't want to hear it. To make a long story short, I was grounded for a week. Now I am sure that the elves are alive. That night, I heard a soft giggling and chuckles. I decided I was going to catch them. When everyone was asleep, I grabbed my dad's phone and waited quietly as possible. The silvery moonlight glowed outside my window. I kept my phone in one hand and kept my eyes on Peppermint and Elfie, looking for any signs of movement. When I was half asleep, the elves started to twitch their arms and legs. Then they silently jumped down to the floor. While their backs were turned, I started to creep after them. They made their way into the kitchen. Once I got a good angle, I took a picture with Dad's phone, but the flash was on. The elves turned towards me and frowned. They started to stagger towards me. I screamed and ran as fast as I could. I went into Todd's room. Maybe he could help. I woke up Todd and he looked confused. "Todd, I need your help. The elves are alive," I cried. I could tell he didn't believe me, and I didn't blame him. "Prove it," he blurted out. Just then the doorknob turned it open, and there stood the elves. Todd screamed as the elves got closer. What did they plan to do to us? My brother ran over to the window. I think he was trying to escape, but instead I quickly grabbed the elves by their pointy hats, which were sewn to the tops of their heads. They struggled and threatened me, but I managed to toss them out the window. To my surprise, they clung to the side of the house and started to climb up the roof. I think they planned to go down the chimney to get back into the house. But just then, a bolt of lightning came down from the sky, split and hit both elves. It was as if something in nature didn't want them alive either. The next morning, Todd and I were eating breakfast when we heard a knock at the door. It was Mr. Calvin with two crispy-looking elf dolls in his hands. "Are these yours?" he asked. "No!" Todd and I shouted as we slammed the door. That was the last we ever saw of those elves, and we hope they are gone for good. Great story, Trent. Well, thank you everybody for watching my video, and I hope that you are enjoying the FrightVision series. See you next time.
Hi, I'm Jennifer Brody, also known as Vera Strange, and I am the award-winning author of the 13th Continuum trilogy and the Disney Chills book series. The second book in my series just came out right in time for spooky season. It's called Fiends on the Other Side and features Dr. Facilier, aka the Shadow Man. Don't make a deal with the Shadow Man. Thanks for your support from my books and series and your interest in writing and telling spooky stories. They are my favorite kind of tales to write. So I am so proud to be reading this story called Halloween Nights by the amazing Hana Amazon, who's 12 years old from New Haven, Connecticut. Congratulations, Hana, and I cannot wait to read your story. So here we go. The crisp October wind blew gently through my hair on the way home with my best friend, Camry. When I looked over, she was crushing the colorful leaves that had fallen. I wonder if we get any Halloween party invites, Camry said excitedly. I hope so. Remember last year? I asked, thinking of last Halloween when all we did was watch horror movies. We turned left, shuffling through a big pile of leaves. I can see Mr. Walter didn't rake again, Camry said, annoyed. You know, just yesterday I saw a huge snake hiding in the pile of leaves. I know, he never... I fell face first into the ground. Oh my gosh, T, are you okay? Camry said, dropping down beside me. Something metal was digging into my leg. I reached into the leaves and pulled out an old-looking necklace. On the silver chain was a crescent moon, and dangling from the tip of the moon was a small blue crystal carved into the shape of a snake. What? I mutter under my breath, turning the necklace over to get a better look. Camry nudged me, and I looked up. 3 pink blurs were approaching in the distance. Oh gosh, I say, putting on the necklace and tucking it under my sweater. Mackenzie, Melody, and Michaela, the cool girls. More like witches. They were the reason we were invited to the coolest Halloween party in town. They always made sure to put us down and convince all the other kids that we weren't cool enough to be included in any big events. We quickly rounded the corner so they wouldn't see us and start in with their cruel jokes. Camry was looking down at her shoes. I knew she was thinking back to all the times they were mean to us. She stopped talking. Come on, Camry, let's not let them get us. It's almost Halloween. We can't let them spoil all the fun, I say, and continue walking. We walked home in silence and admired the nice view of the jack-o'-lanterns. I say goodbye when we reach my house and watch Camry disappear down the street. I lift up the decorative plant and pull up the key. When I unlock the door, the smell of warm apple cider and pumpkin donuts wafts over from the kitchen, and I smile. Mom, I'm home, I call out. Just in time, she calls from the kitchen in a sing-song voice. I walk to the kitchen and see my younger brother, Ryan, stuffing his face with pumpkin donuts at the counter. Ryan, stop that before you choke, my mom says, pouring a cup of warm cider. Here you are, Tia. How was your day? My mom says, handing me a cup of cider. Good, I guess. I got an A on that math assignment. Oh yeah, apparently no one invited me and Camry to a Halloween party, and the mean girls got a big laugh out of that. I'm sure it would be no fun anyway, Mom said. Ryan and I are going to go to the pumpkin patch. You and Camry can come along, she said excitedly. Ryan cheered from the corner. Pumpkin picking was his favorite time. That's okay, me and Camry want to go out tonight, I say. Oh no, you can't go out alone, my mom says in a voice I know that's meant it's final. I head to my room silently and I sit down and start on some homework. By the time I finished, the sun had already set and the street lights flickered on. I got ready in bed and lay awake staring at the ceiling. I feel weird. My chest is icy cold. I feel as if I want to disobey the rules. No, I'm just tired. I would never. I reach to take off the necklace, but it's almost glued onto me. My arm flies toward my phone and aggressively clicks Camry's name. Tia, texting. Meet me outside my house in 10 minutes. We're going out. What's wrong with me? My phone lights up. Camry writes back. Okay. I see a small phone light and Camry is waving from below. Open the window and leap onto a tree, sending birds squawking loudly and flying into the dark sky. I climb down and Camry is all smiles. I thought you said no, Camry exclaims happily. I changed my mind. I smirk. I'm going to be in huge trouble, I scold myself in my head. We quickly walk along to the abandoned house. Found this place when I came by. Let's check it out, Camry says, running ahead. I try to stop myself, but I keep running. I find myself smiling at the no trespassing sign and put my necklace on display. We enter the house and something slithers by. "Tia," Camry whimpers. "What?" I ask, looking around with a rush of happiness and adrenaline. "Look at your necklace," she yelps. I look down and it's glowing a mean red. Something knocks a box down and Camry yelps, "Come on, let's go." Camry screams, but I don't move. My eyes are fixed on the fallen box. Rising from it is a blue snake. It dances slowly and a moon pendant is visible. It's as if I must go toward it, like I'm the missing piece. I start to walk over. Camry screams and tries to pull me back. I reach out to the snake, as if we're old friends. Suddenly, my feet are rising from the ground. Camry's screams are drowned out. I blink and the snake is smiling at me. I'm surrounded by snakes. A hissing noise escapes my mouth, and the snakes nod their heads happily. I find a mirror and look through. My blue scaly skin glistens under the dim light. Better than any expensive costume. "Hiss, let's go to that party," I say, smiling. I feel, as long as I wear this necklace, I will never be the same. The end. Wow, what a great story. Oh my gosh, and I just wrote a book with a creepy necklace and beans on the other side. I love it. Great work, amazing story. I'm so proud and happy that I got to read it. Have a great and safe and spooky Halloween.
A spooky hello to everyone out there. Welcome to my edition of FrightVision carve-con. My name is Sherry. I am author S.A. Larson. I write young adult and middle grade literature. This is my young adult novel, Molly Education. It is about a young girl named Ebony Charmed. She's some sort of you could call her a misfit medium, where she can only see 3 ghosts. She is given a school project which suddenly vanishes. Technically, it's stolen by a fire giant. And then these mystical doors start appearing to her, and she hears a voice behind one of the doors. This sends her and her best friend, Fleischman, on a ghostly journey to battle beasts from Norse mythology, serpents and large wolves and dragons, to retrieve a relic that she believes is vital to saving the underworld. The story is really about family and friendship, and what it's really about is learning to believe in yourself and to accept yourself for who you are. And this is my young adult novel. This is Marked Beauty. This is about a girl who can see the life energy of people. The auras are on people, but she always shuns that gift because she believes that she inherited it from her mother, who abandoned her when she was 6 years old. But her best friend ends up being in a car accident, and the doctors can't figure out what's the matter with her. But Anna can see that there's something wrong with her energy. So she decides to take a leap of faith and try and use her gift to help her best friend. And in doing so, she lures a dark, elusive boy into her world, and with him a sinister energy that not only threatens her life, but her soul. So today I'm super excited because I am here today to read a story from one of the students for the writing contest for FrightVision. My student's name is Nikki Leese, and she's 10 years old from Seattle, Washington. Hi, Nikki. I'm so honored to be able to read your story. So I thought it would be really cool if I upload her story on my Kindle so she could see what it is like to have her words in print. You probably can't really see it, but they're there. And because I'm old, I need to do it this way so it makes the font bigger so I can read. Well, here we go. Here's Nikki's story, The Potion Girl. I walked into my father's study. He was testing out one of his potions. Again. My mother walked into the room. Julian, Opticata? Yes, sir. Catch Lin Meng. She shoved a worm and bug cookie in my face. I licked my lips. If you didn't know, we're zombies. Half of my head was split in two, so you can see my brains. My father grunted sternly, which meant he wanted me to be quiet. My father is known for his great potions. His potions can heal, protect, give strength, and much more. I walked over to him. Juka? He grumbled. He was talking in zombie. We usually only speak that. I passed him a bottle with a blue cork. Frump. He kept working. It was a normal day in Zombie City on Monster Island. My mother, meanwhile, was fussing over my pet. Part turtle, part pig, part parrot, part dog. Her name is Oreo, by the way. I rubbed the left side of my open head. "Umptumtalub," said my father, which meant, "Could you organize my shelves?" I pet Oreo and said, "Leo," which meant yes. I picked up a purple potion. I moved it across the shelf. I picked a blue potion. I was walking across the room to put it on another shelf when it suddenly slipped from my hand. For one split second, I saw it fall. The next second, pieces of glass shattered everywhere. Some of the potion got on me. It was sticky and smelled of something very old. Then I fainted. I didn't know why I fainted. But when I woke up, I felt different. Maybe because my brain fell out again. Oomph. I grunted and put it back in. I got up. There was a huge tail leaning over me. Then I heard a booming sound. Huge feet with slippers on them banging against the floor. Grum, which meant giant. I screamed and covered my head. I looked at the giant. It was my mother? Huge mother. Huge chair. Green snot dripped from her mouth and almost drowned me. This could only mean one thing. I had shrunk. I was lightheaded. I took a piece of string and stitched my forehead. There. I felt better. That potion that had spilled on me, it was a shrinking potion. I heard my father's booming grunt. "Bensta? There's grandpa dust," which meant, "Where is Violet?" He didn't finish. I started screaming at them. "Umfaloos," which meant, "Father, I'm down here." I shrieked so loudly I thought my lungs were about to lose their stitches. They didn't hear me. I started weeping. Oh, how would I get myself out of this mess? I didn't even know how I got into it. I got up and started thinking and looking for a solution. Finally, my red eyes came upon my father's potion shelf. Maybe if I climbed it, they might see me, I thought. Of course, I couldn't think very well, since half my brain was out of my head. I pushed both sides of my head to keep my brain from falling out. I didn't need that slowing me down. I ran as fast as I could without stumbling on my green legs to the huge shelf. I rubbed my hands together. Then I started climbing. I was climbing for about 10 minutes when I looked down. Wow, I thought. I had climbed a lot. Only a few more shelves to go. At last I reached the top. I collapsed against the dusty shelf. I was approximately at my father's shoulders. I jumped up and immediately started screaming. "Kuka, vadidha," which meant mother, father. I rubbed my split throat. Then my father turned around. "Good? Grandpa Kutta," which meant, "Amyia, did you hear that?" My mother shook her head, her brain sloshing from side to side. "Humfled gutpa, Julian," which meant, "Stop fooling me, Julian." Father shrugged and turned back around. I was filled with rage that they didn't hear me, but there was nothing I could do. Just then, I remembered something. Father had a potion that made me bigger, that made you bigger. It was on the other side of the room. It didn't matter. I needed to get bigger. I ran across the top of the shelf. I jumped to the next shelf. I was about to jump again when I slipped. I fell, certain I wouldn't get back up, but I landed on something soft and furry. Oreo! I hugged her. I was so happy to see her. I grabbed her fur and steered her to the shelf with the right potion. Once she was there, she bounced me on her to the top of the shelf. "Thanks, girl," I said. I ran to the potion. I started climbing down. I finally reached it. The potion! I felt myself grow faint. I woke up a minute later feeling great. I rubbed my head. There was no opening in it. I looked at my hands. They were made of real skin. And they weren't green. I was human. There was something fuzzy on my head. Hair, I thought. I tried speaking. La 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 la. I was not grunting, but amazingly I understood myself. I had drunk the wrong potion. I didn't even know my father had a human potion, I thought. Now, think, Violet, think. Where is the zombie potion? Then I remembered. The zombie potion was on my father's desk. It was not easy. It would be easy not to get noticed. I tried jumping. Whee! I jumped high. I jumped all the way to my father's desk. I snuck behind a book. There was a bottle with a green cork near my father's ripped arm. I ran to the bottle and pulled the cork off. Suddenly, a huge voice came up next to me. Human! It was my mother, screaming the only word she knew that was in English. She picked up a book and smash. The end. That was an amazing story, Nikki. I'm so glad that you entered this contest and shared with us. Best of luck with it. And everyone, have a frightful Halloween.
Hey everyone, happy October! The best month of the year is finally here. It's in full swing. Halloween is right around the corner, and I'm thrilled to be able to celebrate all of these awesome things with you guys today by reading one of the winning short stories that was submitted in the carve-con writing competition. Thank you, Culliver Crayons, for involving me in this. I'm so honored. I'm excited to read this story, and I gotta tell you guys, I got kind of a sneak peek at it. I read through it before I decided I was gonna go ahead and video. It's wonderful. It's eerie and atmospheric, and it's just perfect for the season. So you guys are really going to enjoy it. Now, before I dive into that, if you don't know me, my name is Lindsay Currie, and I'm an author of spooky middle grade novels. The one that you see behind you, Scritch Scratch, just came out on September 1st. Ooh. It is a Chicago-based ghost story, so it takes place here in my city, which many of you who have heard me talk at school visits probably already know I believe is one of the most haunted cities in the entire country. So if you're interested in ghosts, and if you want to take a little bit of a virtual trip to Chicago, you're going to want to check out Scritch Scratch. And if you like this book, and you like the spook factor, and you like the ghosts, then you might want to check out this book. This came out in the end of 2017. This is The Peculiar Incident on Shady Street. It is my other ghost book baby. I mean, ghosts. They just are always classic, right? You can't go wrong with a good ghost story. So those are my books. And now it is time to shift the focus to someone else's story, because I am absolutely thrilled to have a chance to read this to you guys today. So the story that I am reading is called Red Lady, and it was submitted by Leia, who is in Massachusetts. Leia, you did an incredible job with your story. It is wonderful from beginning to end, and it's my honor to have the opportunity to read it today. So, since her story is so atmospheric and spooky and eerie, I thought that we should make my environment also atmospheric and spooky and eerie. And to do that, I'm gonna do it by candlelight, okay? So here we go. This is so much better, right guys? So check out the candles I have chosen for reading Leah's story. I have Headless Horseman's Ride, scary, right? And Pumpkin Souffle. All right, as they are flickering, I'm going to open the story, and we are going to begin the tale known as Red Lady. Is it just me, or does this place get prettier every year? Joy asked no one in particular, staring at a waterfall. Jacob and Autumn didn't reply and tried to pull the backpacks out of the trunk. A big crash brought Joy back, and she peeked behind her shoulder. Should have gone camping, Autumn muttered, the backpacks next to her on the ground. Jacob grinned and helped her up. Let's go. Jacob picked up his backpack, and the day was going great. All three of them started to hike up the trail when Jacob suddenly laughed. What? Autumn asked. Nothing, just remember that song we used to sing? Jacob shook the hair out of his face. From the back, Joy called, if you're talking about the Sunshine Lollipops one, then let's hear it. And with that, all three of them started singing a song about lollipops and sunshine and lollipops. Jacob, Autumn, and wait, where's Joy? Panicking, Jacob realized Joy was gone. Autumn tried to think sensibly. She probably just fell behind a bit. Come on, let's check. They rushed back in the direction they came from, calling her name, but when they reached the car, she wasn't there. We need to call the police, SOS, or something. Jacob ran around the car looking under it for Joy. Autumn got into it, trying to start it, but then cursed under her breath, remembering. Joy has the only key to the car. The closest police station is 48 miles away, and she waved her phone around. There's no signal here. We need to look on foot for her. Jacob slumped down, but they both went back on the trail looking for Joy. Hours later, they came to the middle of a meadow and were about to give up. Jacob finished the last of his water bottle, but then spotted something. Joy! Both of them shouted and ran across the meadow where Joy sat calmly. As they came closer, Joy saw them and smiled, but something was off. My dear friends, wherever have you been? Joy called in a dreamy voice that didn't sound like her. Jacob was bothered by something, and then he looked at her face. Hey, Joy, weren't your eyes blue? He backed away from Joy. Her eyes were black as coal. Joy laughed timidly. Oh, that? It's probably just the lighting. Come closer. It's me. Joy stood up and waved them forward. Instead, they backed away, but something stopped them both. Trees with blood-red bark were emerging from the ground, their twisting roots trapping Autumn and Jacob. I told you it was me. Why didn't you believe me? Joy said innocently. Now you'll have to pay the price. She twisted her hands, and tree branches twisted around them both. Trees were growing their full height, towering over them as Joy came closer to them. This time, a different voice came when she spoke. Try to escape. It'll just hurt you more. A raspy old voice came from Joy. She stalked closer until she was next to Jacob, struggling against the branches. Joy leaned down, ready to kill. Don't move a muscle. A voice came from behind Jacob. He couldn't see who it was, but he didn't move. In seconds, he was free, and a girl around his age was standing behind him with a knife. Joy stared at her. Hazel, isn't it? Yes, I remember you clearly. 6 years old when you came here with your older brother, Charles. Still haven't found him. Shame, Joy rasped. Hazel stood her ground but looked shaken. Red lady, be gone! Their blood would be no good for your trees, Hazel barked at her. Joy just looked amused. Their blood? Good heavens, I don't want that. I want their souls. She smiled and lunged toward Jacob, who tripped backwards where Autumn caught him. Run! Head to the waterfall. I'll hold her off, Hazel called at them, bearing her knife at Joy, or the Red Lady. Both of them started to run toward the top of the waterfall, scared out of their wits. They heard Joy scream from behind and paused to look. Joy was twitching horribly, then transformed into the Red Lady. Her skin turned red, and she was as tall as a tree. With black eyes, it was horrible to look at. She screeched, "Minions!" And then the kids, no, zombies, came from the trees. For zombies, they were fast, and they caught up to Autumn and Jacob with no trouble at all. Scrambling as fast as they could to get away, it was useless. The Red Lady followed, and with a wave of her hands, the minions cleared out. I am the Red Lady. For years, I was stuck in the middle of this planet. I struggled, but I vowed that I would have my revenge on the world. You too will become part of this army. I will rule the world, she screeched. Then Jacob had an idea, but he would have to act quickly. She was still talking about taking over the world, paying no attention to Jacob, so he carefully snuck behind her, took a deep breath, and swiftly pushed her to the edge of the cliff where the waterfall was. She crashed down screaming, and when she hit the water, there was silence for a few seconds. Where's my mommy? A squeaky voice came from behind. Startled, Autumn looked behind her. All across the field, zombies were turning back into kids. Jacob spotted Hazel running into a boy's arms. Then a voice came from behind. Please tell me that was a dream, Joy groaned. Joy! Jacob and Autumn strangled her into a hug, and then all together they started to make their way back down the trail. What they wouldn't know for a few years, though, was that the Red Lady was still out there, and part of her soul was in each of them. She would be back, angrier than ever. What do you guys think? It's fantastic, isn't it, Leia? You have done such a wonderful job with your story. I am petrified of the Red Lady, and I really hope she doesn't ever decide to come to Chicago. Congratulations on your winning story, and thank you, Color Crayons, for allowing me to be part of this competition. It was extremely fun, albeit a little bit frightening. Over and out, everyone. Have a wonderful Halloween.
Now it's my turn to read one of the winning short stories. The short story I'll be reading is by Ripley Russell, 8 years old, from Carlsbad, California. The title of this story is called Death, the House of Doom. Long ago, a house was built and someone moved in. Soon after, a witch came and killed them. The witch haunted the house for generations. If anyone moved into the house, they would breathe their last breath. Year after year, this pattern continued. On October 1st, 2020, a boy moved into the house. He tried his best to escape the witch. He ran and ran until he ran into a wall of knives. I know this is true because I am the witch. Watch out, everyone. The end.
My name is Bryce Gibson. I'm the creator of County Line Horror. It's a series of scary books for teens. My latest book is the second Killer Tech book, High Voltage. It's available now. And this is Ginger. We're going to be reading one of the winning stories for this year's carve-con. The story I'm reading is by Bret Allen Morton. He's 10 years old, from Elizabethton, Tennessee. The name of his story is The Haunted Church. Here I was, marching up to my grandpa's house. I went in and gave him a hug. He said, "I've got a real good story for you today, Millie. It's the story of the haunted church. It was fall. I was 11 years old. I was always creeped out by the church a block away from my house. Yet I was marching up to the church. It was where me and my friends had been hanging out for a long time. I went downstairs where our HQ was. We played Uno. Just then, green snakes slithered out from under a supply closet door. Robbie and Oliver, my two friends, ran from the room, leaving me behind. I ran upstairs too. I saw them scramble out the doors. Up on the stage was a boy my age, only he was glowing blue and floating. Then I realized he was a ghost. "Hello there, Miles. My name is Tom. I'm 10 years old. I can make your dreams come true if you'll do one thing. Be my friend. Ever since I died, I've been very lonely," he said. "Okay," I said. Snap. We were at my place. I was cruel at this time, so I started thinking of how to use him. Since my teacher gave me 3 hours worth of homework, I decided to test Tom's power. "Hey, Tom, if you're my true friend, you'll do my homework," I said. Snap. Words appeared on the paper. "Whoa, cool," I said. Just then, Mom came in. "Almost time for dinner," she said. Then she exited the room. "Hey, Tom, do you want a chocolate milk?" "I'm getting one," I said. "No, I can't drink chocolate milk. It was the last thing I drank. So that means my soul is trapped in it, and the church, because that's where I die." "Honey, it's dinner time," Mom interrupted Tom. "Bye," I said. I sat down at the dinner table. It was leftover spaghetti. I'd always hated leftovers. "So, what did you, Robbie, and Oliver do today?" asked Dad. "Nothing really, just hanging out," I said. "Oh, come on. Surely you did more than that." Dad was interrupted by the shatter of a plate smashing into the wall. "What the heck is going on?" Dad was cut off again by another shatter. This time, a bowl full of spaghetti. Plop. Just then, a cabinet opened and more plates and bowls came out and started crashing into walls. More and more cabinets followed right behind it. Soon, plates and bowls were all over the place. Me, Mom, and Dad hid under the table for about 12 minutes. After that, there were no more plates or bowls to smash. I got out and went to bed. I thought a little sleep might take my mind off the weird stuff that happened today. The next day was Halloween. "Today's a big day for you. Your first time trick-or-treating with me," said Tom. "Oh, sorry, Tom. I'm not trick-or-treating with you. My other friends and I are meeting at the church at 6, I said. 6? I'm free, Tom said. The rest of the school day was boring. I got my homework back. All F's. Here I was at the front door of the church. I walked in to see Tom with my friends in cages. "I'm sorry it had to be this way, but Miles can only have one friend. Ha 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 ha. Tom, let them go. I'll never talk to them again. Just let them go," I yelled. The cages disappeared. and they took off towards the door. I ran with them. Guys, it's an old church. We can destroy him. We all began to push. Within 2 minutes of us starting, we had that church in the creek, and that was the last time I ever saw Tom. The end. Great story, I said to Grandpa. We hugged, and then I got in the car. As we pulled out of the driveway, I noticed a boy in the window that looked a lot like Grandpa's description of Tom.
Hi there, my name is Tracey Baptiste, and I am the author of the Jumbies series of books. This is number 1 and number 2 and number 3, as well as a lot of other books for kids like Angel's Grace and Minecraft the Crash. And I will be reading today a story by 10-year-old Valerie Moorcraft. Title of the story is Zombie Day. Here we go. Emmy sat in her class wishing that this day would have never come, and not because there was a test or anything. It was Zombie Day. Zombie Day happens once a year, and on that day the mayor calls the zombies for one night. People lock themselves in their homes as the zombies try to get in. Her teacher always gave them homework, but it was easy and fun homework to keep their minds off the zombies pounding on the door. No one knew why the mayor did this because he sounded so kind when he was campaigning. All of Emmy's classmates seemed on edge and nervous. Her teacher called for recess and everyone went outside. Emmy's best friend, Cheever, went up to her and asked if she wanted to look at the homework. They did this every year, and it was the only good thing about that day. There were some crossword puzzles and a coloring sheet and a bunch of stories. Emmy thought they would be a fun thing to do, but she hoped that it would not set her off guard. She needs to be ready if a zombie bursts through her door. Everyone was called back in and talked for a while until the bell rang. Emmy and Cheever walked home together and discussed their plan for what they were going to do all night. Emmy and Cheever stayed together every year on this day. It was Emmy's turn, so they would stay at her house for the night. Cheever went to her house to get her things and said goodbye to her parents for the night, and they walked the quick walk to Emmy's house. They went to Emmy's room and got changed into their pajamas and then went downstairs to get some food for the night. They got out the mini fridge and brought it up. Emmy's parents came up and they all talked for 5 minutes until they heard the doorbell. It was Cheever's parents who came as well. They did not like the fact that Cheever would be right across the street without them on the most dangerous night of the year. The zombies officially came out at sundown. Every year it was different, and this year it was 7 o'clock. No one took any chances, so they would lock down at sundown anyway. Even though it is only a few minutes difference, it still happened at that time. Emmy's parents let Cheever's parents inside and showed them to Emmy's room. They got some water and put it in the mini fridge. They brought stuff that they would want to keep them company. If they started talking, then the zombies would be relentless and start using things to knock the doors down. They would push past the first door and then the second. It was 5 minutes until sundown, and everyone was locking up their houses. Emmy and Cheever were getting the last things that they needed: sleeping bags, more water, more food, their backpacks, and books. Cheever's and Emmy's parents were getting the house locked up, and the dads were getting an air mattress in the bedroom. It was time. It was 7 o'clock when the zombies came out. And they knew because their phones were exploding with messages, and there were new news reports every minute. The lights were off, but they had a lantern so they would be able to see something. Zombies have awful eyes, or at least the ones who had eyes at all. In short, the zombies would not be able to see the lantern from behind the door. The zombies came, pounding at the front door. Emmy and Cheever started to do their homework to take their minds off of it, and the parents started to read some of the books they brought with them. The zombies were still working on the first door, and then something hit Emmy. "Are we going to be able to even fall asleep?" she whispered. Cheever whispered that to her parents, and they had whispered their answer to her. "Tickle Bear," she said in a hushed voice. "Cheever, you just said Tickle Bear. What does that mean?" Emmy whispered back to her. "That is the answer to question number 1, Cheever replied. "I don't—" "Oh, never mind," Emmy whispered back. She whispered the same question to her parents, who answered, "We will be taking watch, and if something happens, we will wake you girls up." It was now 12 o'clock, and the zombies had just gotten through the first door and were now getting to work on the second door. The girls had done their homework and were now reading. Emmy got a drink of water from the mini fridge and quickly looked outside. Zombies were everywhere. The zombies had only gotten through the first door of her home and no one else's. She was panicking, and she hurried back to her bed where she was supposed to be sleeping, but she couldn't. Not when the zombies were so close to breaking down the doors and coming into the house. Then there was a crack, a loud crack. The zombies had gotten into the house. They had locked the door of every room in the house to make the zombies guess which room they were in. Sure enough, they started to pound on the first door they saw. Emmy was dreary and alarmed, but she felt the slightest bit better that her room was the last room in the house, and she recalled how long it took the zombies to break the first door. She drifted off to sleep, and a few hours later, she heard a crack again. It was not from her house, though. A zombie must have broken a front door. She slept again, but then heard a whooshing sound. The zombies were gone until the next zombie day.
Hi, I'm Jonathan Rosen, and I'm the author of Night of the Living Cuddle Bunnies and the sequel, From Sunset Till Sunrise. Both books are about Devin Dexter and his cousin Tommy, who lives in the mysterious town of Gravesend, where a lot of spooky things happen, including one day the hot new Christmas toy, the Cuddle Bunny, coming to life and terrorizing the town. In the sequel, Devin and Tommy have to deal with a school filled with vampires. But we're not here for those stories today. We're here for a different story. We're here for The Haunted House. It's a story from Cayden and Marshall Kloss. Cayden is 10 and Marshall is 8. They're from Dale, Texas. So now let's enter The Haunted House. Do you want to hear a scary story? Then come on in and sit down so we can get started. Cayden and his brother Marshall and their friends Sarah and Bridget are all out. Now that we introduced you to them, let's get started. One night, we were visiting the neighbor's house when we started hearing chains rattling and scratching on the walls. We asked what the sounds were, but the old lady who lived there said, "I don't hear anything." After we left, Sarah said that we should sneak back over to see what all the noise was. So we waited for it to turn dark, and then we went back. We saw claw marks on the ground, and we heard wolves howling at the moon on the mountains behind the house. We also saw blood on the ground that was leading down to the basement. When we finished walking around the house, we started to hear what we thought was a person yelling from inside the walls. We started to run until Bridget stopped and realized that there was a fresh brick wall put up against the basement. Suddenly, we all saw a man coming toward us. What do? We ran. Then the old lady came outside with a butcher knife in her hand and saw us. She said, "What are you doing?" And we said, "Do you remember what we said when we heard the chains rattling and scratching on the wall?" "Yes," said the old lady. So we asked if she would like to see what we found. We went to show her what we had found so far, but she didn't want to believe us. She said, "Stop messing around the house and leave." We tried to tell her, but she didn't care. Marshall went into the basement after she went back in the house and started to break the brick wall with a hammer. Inside, he found a body, and it looked like it had been dead for a while. I hope you enjoyed The Haunted House.
Hi, I'm author S.O. Thomas, here to read The Mystery Murder by Amyia A. from Gloucester, Louisiana. It was October 24th, 1981, when two kids named Jackson and Olivia were sound asleep in their houses. All of a sudden, bang! There was a loud gunshot noise. They had not realized the noise that night, but they became frightened by morning when they heard the news. Their dearest friend Charlotte was killed in her home. There was a gun in her hand when the police arrived at the scene. The police think it was suicide, but Jackson and Olivia thought otherwise. Later that day, Jackson walked with Olivia to her house so they could do a bit more of thinking. Just nothing seemed to make sense to the two kids. Their friend seemed as happy as could be the last time they saw her. The two kids were determined to figure this out. They asked around and asked Charlotte's family, but they said she never had a troubled past or any issues. When Jackson and Olivia were done doing some detective work, they went over what they knew. They knew that she was a happy kid, and she was delightful, and that she never had a troubled past. That's when Olivia got the thought that maybe Charlotte was murdered. When Olivia told Jackson, he suggested that they ask the police for help, but Olivia thought that the police would tell them to stop and leave their friend's death alone. A week had passed, and it was a few days after Charlotte's funeral when another death happened. It was the death of Max Smith. When Jackson and Olivia went to school the next day, they had looked around and it appeared to them that everyone was acting like this is normal. The two kids were confused. They didn't understand who was killing these people. Since Halloween was next week, all the kids were picking out costumes and people were decorating their houses. But when Olivia remembered that Halloween was next week, she became frightened. She believed that the killer might strike again when all the kids were out trick-or-treating. But when she told Jackson this, he thought she was crazy, and he said everything will be fine. It's October 31st, 1981, Halloween, and all the kids were getting into their costumes and leaving to go trick-or-treating. Jackson went to Olivia's. They went and walked around, got some candy, and went to the park to relax for a little. Just as the two kids were leaving, Jackson got a phone call. His dad was shot. After that phone call, Jackson told Olivia they had to hurry. During that night, the two kids ran all the way to the hospital. It was a matter of life and death for his dad. When they made it to the hospital, they saw his dad being pushed into a surgery room. Jackson just couldn't believe what happened. He was in shock. He kept thinking, what did his dad do to deserve this? Jackson and Olivia waited at the hospital for hours and finally got some good news. His dad is going to make it. Jackson stayed the night at the hospital, but Olivia had to go home. Jackson stayed in the room with his dad. When morning came, they left the hospital. Jackson called his mom to come help with his dad. Jackson's mom pulled up. He was so happy to see her. When he saw her, he felt comfort because he knew everything would be okay. Jackson left for school the next morning. He saw Olivia at lunch, and she asked if his dad was good, which he was. A couple days passed without a murder, but today the murderer struck again, this time leaving a message at the scene. The message said, "Everybody in this town will pay for the bad things they did." That day, everybody became fearful for their lives. They became more cautious, not knowing who was causing all this damage in their town. Jackson and Olivia were starting to realize that there was a pattern the killer had. He would make the crime scene look like a suicide, but it was actually a murder. Since every family on the block was too scared to sleep, they stayed awake making sure nothing happened to them and their family. It was a couple days after Halloween, and the killer took a break, but he didn't take one for long. 2 weeks after Halloween, the killer tried to attack again, but this time he messed up. See, since everybody was being more cautious, the killer was caught and taken to jail. When everybody found out that the killer was caught, they were happy that justice was served. As time passed, there were no murders and no attempted murders. The only exciting event coming up was Olivia's birthday, and she was going to throw a party. Today was the day they threw the party for Olivia. It was party time, Everybody was having fun and having a great time when all of a sudden Olivia went to the bathroom and found a bloody body on the floor. As soon as all the kids heard about the body, they screamed and ran. Jackson ran to Olivia. He was in complete shock. They had just arrested the killer a couple days ago, so how was there another murder? Who was the new murderer?
Hi everybody, I'm Janet Fox and I'm an author and I've written a couple of spooky books that are great for the Halloween season. The first one is called The Charmed Children of Rookskill Castle, came out a couple of years ago, and brand new companion novel to Charmed Children is The Artifact Hunters, and both of them are set in a really creepy castle in Scotland during World War II, and kids are in danger in both books, and there are ghosts and there are witches and there are dragons and monsters, and it's fun. It's fun. They're fun, they're scary, they're fun. But today I am really excited because I get to read a story by a young author, Nikole Mentsos. She's 12 years old and she's from Phoenix, Arizona. And she wrote a perfectly scary story for Halloween. So here we go. It's called The Creepy Clowns on Willow Street. Here we are. Nikole's story. One evening on Friday, October 30th, the night before Halloween, my younger brother and I were walking home from the park when we saw something run across the street in front of us. We didn't think anything of it until we saw it over and over again. We decided to ignore it until we heard bushes rustling and the pitter-patter of footsteps getting nearer and nearer. We turned around and the noises stopped. We started running towards our house. All we could hear behind us were footsteps running faster and faster. We turned around and saw a tall clown creeping up on us. We hid behind this trailer that was parked on the street. We heard him getting closer, so we didn't make a sound. "I see you," said the clown with its old lady voice. "I know where you are," he said. We looked under the trailer and he was walking closer, so we ran. He followed us, so we took a shortcut and hid behind these rose bushes. We took a glance and there he was, standing at the corner, but now he had a reddish balloon. He said, come out, wherever you are." I called my dad and told him to help us. After he said he was on his way, there were 3 clowns standing there. They had all split up and were looking for us. We saw a car driving closer to us, so we ran towards it, but it just kept driving. We got even more scared, so we ran as fast as we could without looking back. We were running so fast, I heard my heart in my head. We saw our dad, so we kept running towards him. Then he took us in the car as the clowns were multiplying. We got home as fast as we could, locked the doors, and called the police. Later on, they were on the news, and they were killer clowns. That is the story of Clowns on Willow Street. Whew. Gave me the shivers. I don't know about you, but I don't like creepy clowns. But have a great Halloween, be safe, and don't run into any clowns. And good job, Nikole. Did a great story. Bye.
My name is Rob Walcott. I will be reading a story to you called The Candy Napper. This was written by Emma Westmont. She's 8 years old, from Waunakee, Wisconsin. One night I was sleeping in my bed and I heard a sound. It was coming from downstairs. I quietly climbed out of bed and then I opened the door just a bit. I slowly walked out of my room and went quietly downstairs, and I heard the sound clearly this time. It sounded like crunch, crunch. I crept forward slowly, and the sound got louder and louder. It was coming from the cabinet. And then the creature walked out, and I screamed, and the creature screamed too. And then we both stopped screaming. I noticed that the creature was just my brother sneaking candy. Happy Halloween.
Welcome, FrightVision fans and fans of terrifying stories. I am author Kim Ventrella, and I'm here to read you a very amazingly terrifying tale. But first, let me show you some of the books that I've written. The Secret Life of Sam is my most recent one. Hello, Future Me also came out this year. Bone Hollow, pick that one up. And Skeleton Tree was my first book to release, but also I'm part of this anthology called Don't Turn Out the Lights, featuring 35 terrifying tales by 35 amazing authors. Now these will really keep you up at night, but today I have a super terrifying tale, one of the amazing stories from the FrightVision contest. Now, our winner and the creator of this story is Adair Stewart Lutz, 11 years old, from Mesa, Arizona. The title is called The Sleepover. Are you ready to be terrified? Let's hope so. Long ago, there was a countess named Elizabeth Bathory. She was wicked and bathed in the blood of the little girls in her town. During one of these baths, a guard came in. He used his helmet to knock her out, threw her unconscious body into the tub, and covered the tub with a table. Ring! Read page 105 in your books, please, shouted the teacher as the students filed into the hall. Sarah ran to her friend Sammy. Wow, today's lesson was creepy, Sarah said. I saw about her on TV. Her body was shipped to what's now Pennsylvania and reburied. Native American tribes in the area had a lot of stories of little girls disappearing. Spooky, Sarah said, rolling her eyes. Hey, are you guys coming to my slumber party? Asked Rondella, the most popular girl in school. Yes, the girls replied in unison. 3 hours later, Sarah got to Rondella's house, which was really more of a mansion. Inside the huge home were 4 other girls Sarah didn't know, with Sammy. They watched movies and ate snacks until Rondella's dad said it was time for bed. Rondella brought the other girls to her bedroom. I've got a fun game, she said. Let's play Bloodstained Bathory. The girls all went into the bathroom together. Rondella turned out the lights. She whispered, Bloodstained Bathory, Bloodstained Bathory, Bloodstained Bathory, while pulling out her earring. Rondella poked her finger with her earring and let the blood drop into the sink drain. The girls screamed and ran into the bedroom to sleep. Nella, Rondella's BFF, was awakened that night by a dripping sound. She followed the sound to the bathroom, where she turned on the lights and saw blood dripping into the tub from the ceiling. She screamed and all the girls came running. Let's get out of here, Nella told them, pointing down the hall toward the kitchen. As the girls ran down the winding hall, Rondella felt a cold hand wrap around her ankle. It pulled her to the ground. With everyone screaming, Rondella pulled herself back up. They made it to the kitchen and turned on all the lights. In movies, they use salt to keep supernatural beings away, Sammy said. Rondella pulled salt out of the cabinet and poured it on the floor in a circle all around them. They heard a shriek and all the lights flickered. Bathory appeared before them. You have summoned me, she bellowed. You will pay. The lights went out. One by one, the girls screamed. 10 years later, Sarah twirls a piece of her white hair. Being in an asylum for a decade really does a number on a girl. The end. And that was the terrifying tale called The Sleepover by Adair Stewart Lutz. Great job, Adair, and thanks for hanging out with me for this super creepy tale.
Whoa, I hope all of you are enjoying these stories as much as I am. But we're going to take a quick break here because we have a special giveaway alert for everyone here. So, we have some really cool pumpkin masks, face masks that are made by Stacy at the Forgetful Hummingbird Etsy store. And so we'll take a quick sneak peek at a video that will be showing up on our YouTube page, which, if you're interested, you can learn how to make your own masks at home. And we're giving away 5 of these pumpkin masks. So to enter, go to the FrightVision website, www.frightvisionbooks.com, click on Contact, and then reach out and tell us something that you're enjoying about carve-con. Anything, whatever you've liked, and we'll enter you in the drawing for 5 different winners of a cool new spooky pumpkin mask. So have a look, and afterwards, learn how to make the mask on our YouTube channel for a carve-con extra.
Stacy, and I'm with Forgetful Hummingbird on Etsy. Today I'm going to be teaching you how to make a mask, and with me today is my helper, the 7-toed cat named Petrie. He's also a monster, and he's going to help us with our awesome Halloween carve-con themed mask. A carve-con themed face mask for Halloween. All right, and now that we've made our mask, I hope everyone has a happy and safe Halloween. From Petrie and I, trick or treat.
So that's just a quick sneak peek at how to make your own mask at home. So don't forget to enter the giveaway. Go to FrightVisionBooks.com, click on Contact, and tell us something you're enjoying about the carve-con event, and then we will enter you into the drawing. You have to enter by Sunday, the day after Halloween, so November 1st, and then we will draw the winners on Monday, and we will email you based on the email that you put in to the FrightVision website, so make sure that you spell your email correctly. But now, it's time for more stories.
Hello, I'm Julia Dove, writer and co-author of Picture Day, the second book in the Culliver Krantz FrightVision book series. Tonight it is my great honor to read a winning selection from the carve-con 2020 writing contest. The title of this selection is The Worst Mistake I've Ever Made, and it is written by Zahra Saeed, who's 12 years old, from Lawrenceville, Georgia. Congratulations, Zahra. I still have not been able to sleep ever since that day. If I try to sleep, I see it. I see her. I live in a nightmare every day and night, and it's all because of the spell that demon cast. I bet you're wondering who or what I'm talking about. Let me start from the beginning. It all started 4 days before Halloween, the typical setting of a horror story. Unlike other horror stories, though, I was a person who did not believe in Halloween. My parents came from a religious background, so I never celebrated it. But now, I really believe in it. Anyways, I was at school, and all the kids were super hyped about Halloween. But I, on the other hand, was sitting around doing nothing. On my way home, I took the long way to steer clear of anyone who could tell me about another Halloween party I won't be able to go to. It was actually nice, feeling the crisp fall breeze in my loose brown hair. My perfect green eyes matched with the few green leaves on the trees. But that was the worst mistake I ever made. If only I had taken the short way, then I wouldn't have to suffer like I did. While I was walking, I heard a slight rustle in the bushes. Suddenly, out of nowhere, a pitch-black cat with the darkest eyes I've ever seen popped out of the bush. There's something you should know about me. I love cats. So when I saw it, I touched it. It was so soft and fluffy. I have loved cats ever since I was young, and I had one once. Somehow, touching this cat made me think of her. Then I heard it. It was like someone laughing my name. Andrea. I looked behind me so fast my neck ached. Nothing. Then it was in front of me, that same sound. I looked forward, and this time I was even more scared than before. I saw nothing. So I looked back at the cat. That was another one of my mistakes. The cat had the face of a human. Its eyes were now white with one tiny dot in them, and the mouth had a smile reaching from one cat ear to the other. I ran so fast, but I heard, "I will find you." I slept in fear that night. The next few days were pretty normal, but then came Halloween Day. I still thought of the words that thing said. I was probably just hearing things, I thought. When all the kids went trick-or-treating, I was home alone. I was paranoid, so I went outside to get some fresh air. When I went outside and saw something tall, almost 8 feet, skinny and white, I saw a face. While I was trying to figure out what it was, I felt a slow tap on my shoulder. I was frozen, scared. I turned around to see the tall figure behind me, poking my shoulder. I screamed and tried to run, but my legs wouldn't move. Then that same voice. Andrea, It was a nightmare in real life. I knew I wasn't hearing things. Finally, my legs started to move, but the figure caught me and said a word I couldn't make out. I turned around to try and see what she was doing, but to my shock, she was gone. Ever since that day, I've seen her everywhere. I see her in the corner of my eyes and turn around to see nothing. If I try to sleep, I have nightmares that I'm in dark woods running away from her, but my running is like slow walking. This is the curse that has been placed on me. I hear her laugh ringing in my head. Always believe in Halloween, or it will come to haunt you like it did to me. The end.
Hi, it's Cynthia Reeg, author of From the Grave and Into the Shadowlands, the stories of monster misfits trying to prove that they are more than monster enough, just the way they are, and some of their wild adventures that ensue. But today I'm here to talk about carve-con, which is the Halloween 2020 writing contest presented by FrightVision, and I have the opportunity to read one of the winning stories. So let me take off my spooky spectacles so that you can better concentrate on this fabulous story written by Lillie Landon of Georgia. She's 10 years old, and she did an awesome job with her descriptions and the voices of the characters coming through. She has such great imagination and a twist of an ending too. So let's get started, and I will read to you her story, Tricks and Treats by Lillie Landon. So I didn't want to start off Halloween like this. Seriously, I found out that there was a candy shortage. There was once a meat-flavored Halloween candy. Yum. Oh, how my mouth watered thinking of it. Suddenly, my know-it-all, annoying, not too sweet, older sister, Addison, broke my thoughts. Like, when you smash a mirror with a hammer. Yeah, I've done that before. Her voice sounded like a squeaky, high-pitched, annoying voice. Jade, what should I be for Halloween? Addison said to me. She stared at me with a very serious look on her face, and I could see that she took Halloween very seriously. Especially after we moved here. Addison had a weird obsession with the color red. And Addie also told me to lick my finger when it bleeds. Yeah. She also said, it won't stop it hurting or bleeding, but it calms me down. Am I weird? We end a lot of conversations like that. She thought of Halloween as a moment to show herself. I thought of it as a moment for candy. I think you should be a gargoyle, Addie. It's so you, I said. She didn't recognize the sarcasm in my voice. Addison replied, I think you should be a monster. I give her the look with my glowing eyes. I'm serious, though, Addison said with a sly look. Later on, after we had gotten dressed, I motioned toward the door as if I was telling my older sister it was time to go, and we walked around the neighborhood dressed up. Jade, look, Addison said in a shaky voice. I looked up. There was a full moon. Uh-oh, I said, almost screaming. My back arched. My hair started to grow extra long, and I thought about meat more than ever. Pause. I didn't say anything earlier because I didn't want to scare you, but I'm a werewolf. Hope that doesn't scare you. We decided to go to our neighbor, Mrs. Hansen's home. Her house was full of skulls, human skulls. I grabbed my necklace that I always wear. Mrs. Hansen was a very good pickpocket, and I saw Addison held her necklace too. Her necklace is very valuable as it keeps her from burning in the sun. Mrs. Hansen has an eye for decorating, although to the human eye, you'd see a really fluffy kitten photos and cute cats running around. In our reality, we see hairless and vicious black cats running around and scary images on the walls. Of course, Addison and I don't mind. So, full moon? Mrs. Hansen says with an evil grin. Yes, ma'am, I say. I had a feeling this was about to get crazy. Crazier than it already was. Lock her up. She tries to eat all the meat when she turns, Addison said, staring me down, looking for changes. Addison was happily eating raw bacon. Hold up. It's not that strange. This actually makes sense. Addison is a vampire. Okay, I'll carry on with the story. Okay, fine, Mrs. Hanson says, fumbling with the shackles. She carefully put those cold things around my arms and ankles. I looked over and saw Addison was now enjoying her candy. Great! Now how will I eat my Halloween candy? I said with an angry wolf tone in my voice. All right, Addison said, waving my favorite candy in my face, Laffy Taffy. Okay, so maybe it isn't my favorite, but when you turn, you think any food is good, even cucumbers. I felt like she was taunting me. Addison finally put the taffy into my mouth. Thanks, I said with a low growl. The next morning, I woke up to a terrible sound. It was that stupid cat Mrs. Hanson has. Dicker. Yes, that's the cat's name. Dicker walked into my messy hair. Ugh, that cat makes me so mad sometimes. But this was different. The cat was shivering. That poor hairless cat was freezing. My sister and Mrs. Hanson came down and unlocked me. Boy, what a good feeling that was. Well, I guess we should be getting home now, I said. I tried to find my magic coin in my coat. I finally found it. I hid it in my hand out of Mrs. Hanson's view. Sure thing. Have a nice day, Jade and Addison, she said with the evilest grin she's ever made. She makes some pretty evil grins a lot. As we left and said our goodbyes, I slipped a coin into her pocket. She took it out and looked at it. Suddenly, she started to glow. I gave an evil grin. She did the same. I made a closing door motion, and she closed the door. I did it. I finally compelled Mrs. Hanson. She's the most important of the 3 witch sisters. Addison looked at me and started to speak. Oh, what did you do? Darn, I was caught. I quietly replied with a grin. I compelled Mrs. Hanson and got her powers. I looked at Addison. She gave me the look. We headed home. Mom and Dad will soon have their wish, the wish of having werewolf, vampire, and witch powers. She paused. Well done, Jade, well done, Addison said. Mom and Dad had always wanted to be WWV powerful. You know, witch, werewolf, and vampire. October is the only time someone can obtain those powers with a magic coin. If it hadn't been a full moon last night, we never would have gone to Mrs. Hanson's house and gotten her powers. Mom and Dad would have had no other choice but to wait till next year to try for it. Addison and I walked up the front steps of our house. Before we went in, we looked at each other and smiled and held on to our necklaces. We both turned into black cats. Mom and Dad would have to wait for their turn. Addison and I had already consumed some of Mrs. Hanson's powers. The end. So happy Halloween, everyone. And as my monsters would say, scary on. Bye-bye.
Hey everybody, my name is Cameron Chaney and I am the author of Autumn Crow. It is a book about a town called Autumn Crow Valley where it is Halloween every day. I also have stories published in Local Haunts, a horror tube anthology. as well as other voices, other tunes. I also have a YouTube show called Library Macabre, where I talk about books, movies, writing, and all things spooky. But enough about me. I wanted to say congratulations to all of you kids who won the writing contest. I think it is amazing that you kids are already writing your own stories and creating your own worlds with your own words. That is a very hard thing to do. Trust me. I know that writing is very hard, and it is so cool to me that you guys are practicing and getting your work out there in the world. Today I'm going to be reading a story from Anish, who is 10 years old from Weston, Florida. Anish, congratulations on winning. I think your story is really awesome, and I am so excited to be able to read it out loud for everybody to hear. So without further ado, here is Anish's story. It's hard enough being a cop. It's even harder being a cop and being exhausted and energetic at the same time. I awoke to a ring on my doorbell. When I opened the door, I saw a giant spider on top of an Amazon package. I thought to myself, how helpful. Amazon gives me everything I need with a swipe of my phone. I wish everyone would do that. Next, I looked around for the Wilson boys, not even surprised by the unmoving giant spider. Once I caught the boys, I brought them back to their parents and told them I would arrest them the next time they messed with me or even tried a prank like the spider over there. They freaked and promised they wouldn't. But knowing those two boys, I already knew they were planning something else. After the incident, I headed to the office. Once there, I got a case for a robbery on Southeast High Manor. Usually I don't do robberies, but the department was already full of cases. When I arrived, the door was shattered, and there were big, bloody trails. I followed the biggest one and saw a large spider that was made up of other live spiders, and everything in black. When I woke up, I wasn't me anymore, and I couldn't remember anything. Also, I was really energetic, but sluggish and tired at the same time. It was like all my energy was there, but bordered by a barrier of laziness and sluggishness. I called up my boss, and he told me to take a week-long break, find a good doctor, and get better. After a week, I felt 20 times worse instead of better, but I didn't want to let my boss down, so I went to work. When I got there, he told me I will be on the front desk until I feel better. For the next 3 weeks, I was sitting at a desk, answering the phone, calling the drills, but not participating in any of it. A week after Halloween, my energy started to escape the prison cell holding it captive. When the boss saw I was feeling better, he told me there was a homicide in Brooklyn Heights at 325 Washington Drive. When I arrived, my memories started coming back. The first case was a robbery, and now a homicide, both with the same bloody trails. That's when I got my first glimpse of the murderer. He was wearing a black coat and was very dark and spooky looking. When he looked at me, I saw sinister red glowing eyes, and my arm started pulsing as if it was alive. I looked at my arm and saw pulsing, glowing black crawling under my skin, reaching towards my temple. Crack! Ugh! I woke up hanging, immobilized from the ceiling. I had always thought the symptoms I had gotten would be my doom, and looking down at the lava pit below me, I was starting to live my own nightmare. I was thinking that the Wilson boys were responsible, and then thought, pit of lava, sinister, glowing, evil face, it just couldn't be. The more I thought about it, the less I understood it. Finally, after what felt like centuries, the monster came from the shadows. When the monster appeared, my throat contracted and started swelling. Also, weird, pulsing creatures started flying out of my throat. They were just mini versions of the monster, with slender man tentacles on their backs. After a minute, I could finally breathe again. I felt like I was on the verge of death, and the monster was slowly pushing me closer to the edge of the cliff. After the near-death experience, my energy just bolted out of the prison it was held in, and I was no longer immobilized. Forgetting about the lava pool beneath me, I sawed off the chains with my pocket knife, and I got my first good glimpse of the monster. He had bloody horns, red glowing eyes, a sinister smile, and a cloak around a dragon-like body. Then I fell Tucking my knees in, I looked down and realized my mistake. I closed my eyes, waiting for impact, but my reflexes kicked in. I grabbed one of the chains and swung just past the lava pool, burning my pants in the meanwhile. Once I touched the floor, I immediately rolled away because the monster threw his butcher knife at me. He then spoke in a raspy voice. "Very well. If my knife won't kill you, then I will." And he singed my eyebrows off by shooting a fireball. Naturally, since, of course, he is a dragon himself. After that, I pulled the butcher knife out of the wall, and it was burning to the touch. I shouted to the dragon, "You want to come play with fire? We'll play with fire." I threw the butcher knife at him. At the last moment, he decided he wanted to live and transformed into the mega spider I had seen at the manor and back into his regular form. I realized there was a small hole in the wall where the dragon had shot the fireball. I climbed into it and saw a ladder leading upwards to a sewer entrance. I climbed up and realized it was the original bloody path I saw. I realized that it was one of the bloody trails that had been by the manor. I hopped out of it and then threw a C4 grenade into the tunnel. Upon hearing a blood-curdling shriek, I thought to myself, "Good, the monster's dead," and went home. Once I got in, all the energy flew out of me and I fell asleep. Right before I fell asleep, I saw the monster in my mirror, staring right at me with a glare. The end. Anish, congratulations once again on winning the contest. I think you are a very talented writer, and I can't wait to see all of the amazing stories you write in the future. Great job, and I hope you enjoyed this reading. Thank you. Bye.
Good evening. I'm Laura, and I'm an editor for Culliver Krantz and for the FrightVision series. And I'm here tonight reading a story from Shashwat Jain, a 9-year-old fan from India. The title of the story is The White School. Steve went to St. Peter's School in the Spookyland County. He was very fond of his school. One day, a disaster struck. No one knew how or what happened or who did it. Thankfully, no one was hurt. The school was in shambles. A white powder was sprayed throughout the school. The school started to look like the name of the county. It needed renovation. It took quite some time. Steve was excited to finally go back to school. The day arrived. As Steve's mom dropped him at school, he found that the school was still white. It had white walls, white marble floor, and white flowers in the garden. It was the time of year when everyone eagerly awaits the sports day. Steve was an athlete. He opted for a marathon. He was practicing very hard. He stayed after school and practiced every day. When he came home, his parents would see him soaked with sweat. That evening, too, Steve was practicing. Steve's friends waved at him as he ran past them. With every lap, there were fewer people on the track as it was getting darker. Steve was all alone on the track now. His shoes were increasingly sticky. Steve didn't notice that the track was getting wetter. He didn't anticipate a puddle when he accidentally slipped. He saw something shocking, something mysterious. As Steve gathered himself to stand up, he saw the school wall splitting away. There was a door behind it. Something was scribbled on it. Could it be an encoded message? This is what it said. He tried decoding it. Pleasehelpme. Please help me. He did not pay much attention, as he was a bit scared now. He quickly got up and ran home. Steve couldn't sleep well that night. He kept thinking about what he saw that evening. The next morning, he decided to ignore what had happened and get on with his marathon practice again. That evening, he saw the wall splitting and the door behind it again. But the message had changed. This is what it looked like. H-E-L-P-M-E? Help me? Steve guessed. He gathered all his courage, decided to go in and check the room behind the door. It was dark. Steve couldn't see anything clearly. He heard a whisper. He turned and saw something, a faint glimpse of something white, with a few blood-red spots on it. Were they red eyes? Was it a white creature approaching him? He kept his nerves and stepped forward. The white face appeared again. The red spots were his nostrils. It had no eyes, just holes. He was frightened. He could not stay there anymore and ran away. I am lucky enough to escape, thought Steve as he stepped out of the door. He breathed a sigh of relief. He wanted to narrate the incident to his friends. He checked the time, and to his surprise, it was 7 p.m. Did the time just fly? Was he in the room for 2 hours? Surely he was not. What had just happened? Something was absolutely weird. Was the watch showing the actual time, or was it running too fast? Steve couldn't believe his eyes. The sun was setting, but in the blink of an eye, it was dawn. Did that happen in time lapse? Yes, it seemed so. Steve was not able to think. What is the way out? How long will this go on? Why is all this happening? What should he do? He was stuck with so many questions, but an idea struck. What if I go back to the door? That could be a way out. Steve thought and headed back in his tracks. Still scared, he went back and stepped back in the dark room. The scene played out again, but in reverse order. The white creature was moving away. Steve could observe it closely this time. It had no hands, but the talons of a falcon and a thick white mane. Steve came out of the room. The watch read 5:01 p.m. He was relieved, but also shocked. He kept staring at the wall, thinking, was it for real? Everything seemed to be back to normal. He stepped in and out of the room a couple times more. He now knew. It was a time machine. He never disclosed this secret to anyone, for he feared that it would not be a secret anymore. He made sure that he remained distant from that white-faced creature in the room. He now knew the reason why the old school building had white power. The renovated building had a white prominence too. The creature was there all along. But one day, the creature caught Steve by surprise and patted on his shoulder and whispered closely, "Let me out." As Steve looked back, the creature was getting uglier by the moment. Scared, Steve quickly ran out. It was dark outside. The crickets were too loud that night. Steve had forgot to shut the door. The world was open for the creature. A weird and white shadow slowly stepped out the door. The end.
Hello, this is Steve, Pumpkinhead Steve, and I am Lorien Lawrence. I am the middle grade horror author of the Fright Watch series. The first book in the series just came out in August, and it's called The Stitchers. You can see it. But I'm not here to talk about my book today. Today I have the honor of reading one of the winning stories from the FrightVision, carve-con, and this is an author to watch, a young 10-year-old author from Connecticut who I'm pretty convinced is going to be the next Stephen King. So I am so excited to read his short story called Chomp. So Steve and I are going to settle in and get ready. It's story time. Chomp by Zane Parrish. While sitting in my favorite chair, the one I used since I was a toddler, I inspected my reflection in the mirror, which hung above our side table in the dining room. I was bored because the power had gone out for what felt like forever, so I couldn't watch TV or play video games. My parents had lit candles, which they called a power outage classic, but I didn't like candles at all. and complained to my father about it still being too gloomy. I also bothered him about a weird rattling noise I kept hearing. But he ignored me, as usual, and went out with his friends instead. It was hot in the house and the windows were open. The wind coming in was making the chandelier above the dining table sway. I assumed this was causing the annoying rattling noise, but I swiftly distracted from that by the sound of a dull cry coming from down the hall. Without thinking, I jumped from my chair to find out what it was. Nothing seemed to be there, and it was too dark to see anything anyway. I thought the cry must have been coming from one of those dramatic shows my mom liked to watch, but then I remembered that she didn't come home from work until 8 p.m. Also, power was out. I sat back down and stared at the mirror. I had an awfully disturbed look on my face. The crying had not stopped. It was just getting louder and more deranged sounding by the second. It's nothing, just my ears playing tricks on me. I tried to convince myself. Unfortunately, I knew I was wrong. The room seemed to be getting dimmer as I felt myself growing more and more anxious, while the tormented cry continued to roar. It was the most terrifying sound my 10-year-old ears had ever heard. I started sobbing, wiping the tears onto my sleeve, and now completely panicked, I decided to hide behind the chair while I peeked into the long, dark hallway. All at once, the horrific sounds ended, and a silhouette began to form in the shadows. As the figure stumbled towards me, I could see that its gray body was covered in red blood that had poured from its butchered chest, where guts hung down like dead gray snakes. One leg pulled along the side of its horrible body as it stumbled towards me and made a terrible cracking noise with each step it took across the hard wood floor. Then I noticed the broken chain dangling from its wrist. It was making that rattling noise I had heard before. Was that sound coming from this monster all along? Its moon-white face got closer to me, and I could see it had no eyes, just shaded sockets. The hair it did have hung down from its head like long, black, spindly spider legs. Then I saw its mouth slit open, preventing it from making any other facial expression except a wide, sinister smile. Slowly, it lifted its long, decrepit finger towards my eye. Its grin grew wider, and it said, "Need a hint?" The creature suddenly tumbled to the floor, steam rising from its rotting body, its fingertips melting into the dark walnut planks. I moved from behind the chair to grab a lit candle, only to see that the body had disappeared. The only thing left was a puddle of blood. I rushed to the kitchen across the hall, grabbing the phone to call the police, but of course, the phone had been disconnected. I froze, then my eyes widened as I felt something slide down my forehead, dripping onto my nose. I dropped the phone, leaving it dangling from its cord, and slowly brought my hand to my face to wipe the liquid off. Was it blood? Once again, I heard that ear-piercing rattle. Not knowing the sound was coming from now knowing that the sound was coming from the chained creature, I turned to look back down the hall, expecting to see the monster. But from above my head, I heard a deep, scratchy voice whisper, "Need a hint?" Without warning, black, sharp claws covered in dry blood grabbed my neck, yanking me upwards. Then I saw it. The creature was sprawled out on the ceiling, staring at me with that terrible grin. My stomach churned as I watched saliva fall from its gaping mouth. Its face had dry, cracking skin. One red eye appeared from out of nowhere, rolling forward into its socket. The blood on its claws smelled metallic as they pierced onto my neck. The sliced mouth enlarged, and while gasping for air, the monster shrieked, "The hint is that this is all just a bad dream!" Chomp. the end. That was delightfully terrifying. And with that, Steve and I are going to go have nightmares for the next week. So thank you, Zane. You are such a talent that I can't wait to keep watching.
Good evening. My name is Kwame Mbalia, author of the Tristan Strong series. Tristan Strong punches a hole in the sky, and Tristan Strong destroys the world. Tonight, I am here to read you a thrilling short story by Jayden Bazemore, age 10, from Beckley, West Virginia. His story is entitled The Babysitter. It was a dark and cold night in October when my parents went out. I should have known it wasn't going to be a good night because there was a full moon. While I was looking at it out of my window, the doorbell rang. It was my babysitter. I always liked her coming over. Sarah is a lot of fun. She's not like most boring babysitters. I thought it was going to be a fun night playing video games, but boy, was I wrong. I never knew it was going to be the scariest night of my life. I ran downstairs to meet Sarah. She has beautiful blonde long hair, and she had on a blue butterfly dress. She was saying bye to my mom and dad as they closed the door. I ran to jump on the couch, grabbed the Switch controller, and asked Sarah which game to play first. She said, "Tonight, we will play a new game." She tells me we should try to talk to the girl who's missing down the street. I ask, how is she missing? Sarah said she would show me. If she is dead, we will know and can help the cops find her, and we would be heroes. I always wanted to be a hero when I was younger, and so I asked, how could we do it? Sarah ran in the other room and got a candle. She lit it and told me to sit down. She grabbed my hand and told me to close my eyes. Then she asked, "April, are you there? We just want to help you. Please, let us know." We wait, but nothing happened. Sarah says, "April, please let us know if you're okay." Still nothing. I get up and jump on the couch and ask Sarah, "Let's just play Fortnite. Come on." I turn around. Sarah is still sitting with her eyes closed. I go over and say, "Sarah, did you hear me? Come on." Still nothing. I go to touch her, and bam! She pushes me down. She screams, "Who are you? To want to talk to me?" I laugh and tell her I know she's trying to scare me, till I see her eyes. They were red, bright blood red, and looked different. They looked evil. That's when I knew it wasn't Sarah. I got so scared, so I ran upstairs. I ran so fast I slipped and fell on the step. Now she's right behind me. So I finally get to my room and lock my door. I don't know what to do. I try to turn my light on, but it doesn't turn on. So I grab my flashlight and turn it on. It starts to flicker and then goes out. It's pitch dark. I have to find batteries. So I start checking my room. Then bang! That thing starts banging on the door saying, "You'd better let me in." I hear it breaking through the door. So I grab the batteries and run so fast to my bed and cover up with my covers and hear my door open. I stay quiet, but I can hear my heart beating. It's going so fast, I think it's going to explode. But I don't hear Sarah. I think she's gone. So I open my covers and nothing. Phew. I turn on my flashlight and there she is! Ah! I wake up. My mom is shaking me, telling me it's okay. It's just a dream. I'm so happy that I hug her, but then I see the full moon out of my window, and the doorbell rings. I run downstairs to see Sarah come in. She has on the same outfit. Was it really a dream, or am I living a nightmare? Bang!
Hello there. My name is Josh Roberts. I am the author of The Witches of Willow Cove, which is a spooky middle grade novel published by Owl Hollow Press. It is a mystery, adventure, magical fantasy set in small town New England, and it deals with some of the history of the Salem witch trials and how things that happened in the past still sort of reverberate into our present. Today I am reading a short story from Bushra Hoke, 12 years old, from Norcross, Georgia. The name of the story is The One with No Identity, and I'm really excited to read this. So here we go. The One with No Identity. Roughed up shackles fell to the floor, an eerie aura surrounding the ancient castle. What a pain, mumbled the deep voice that arose from the corner, shrouded in complete darkness. And here I thought my plan finally worked. The voice sighed in disappointment. An unknown person wearing a tall black trench coat that covered their body appeared from the darkened corner. They wore a hood, which drooped in front of their face, allowing only their locks of dark brunette hair to rest upon their face, covering their eyes. Ugh, their deep, clear, ghostly voice moaned. The captive escaped. How? They murmured quietly. Shh! They attempted to screech, but suddenly paused, causing the whole area surrounding them to go quiet. The petrifying silence ended with a horrifying, screechy, and chilling laugh that was so painfully loud it caused the birds on the trees outside of the castle to fly away in complete fear. The voice of the scream faded away, causing the hooded person inside the towers of the castle to collapse on the floor in a crouching pose. The figure's hand raised up, nearing their chest, and briskly grabbed their own neck. They let out several dry, exhaling coughs and finally let go of their neck. Just then, something that sounded like metal dropped on the floor. The item was a rusty, blood-stained knife. Ah, they terrifyingly giggled. I didn't even know I had this in here. They appallingly grinned as they moved their hand to the large pocket on the right side of their coat. With a chilling, tired-like sigh, they stood up, leaning down to grab the knife and put it back in their pocket. As they did this, they breathed heavily. My chest hurts, they groaned in pain. They put their hand on their chest, attempting to stand up straight, and walked out of the cold, windy room they were in, through the slightly open door. And like that, they trudged down through the door, to the stairs with a frowned, sinister-like expression. Once they got down the stairs to the door leading to the cold, menacing wilderness, they leaned on the door and pulled down their hood, revealing their long, messy umber hair that reached the tip of their eyebrows and the back of their waist. They had cold, mahogany color-like eyes that drooped down, revealing dark eye bags underneath them. Their eyelashes were black, thick, and long in length. After revealing the appearance of their face for a split second, they put their hood back on, covering their unknown appearance once again. The end. Well, that was great. Thank you for the opportunity to read it. I really enjoyed it, and I hope you enjoyed this reading. All right.
I do have one more story that I'll be reading this evening. This is a story written by Ashley Penn, 10 years old, from New Jersey. The title of the story is called The Mystery of the Shadow Guy. It was a dark and stormy night in New York. There was a girl named Ava. She has an older brother named Justin and a mother who she lives with. When Ava was younger, her dad was kidnapped at his workplace. They never saw him again. Some people in town say he was killed, but others say he is still alive. One day she left to go walk to school with Justin. They were halfway to school when she turned around and saw something coming closer to her. It looked like a shadow was hanging above her. Ava started to get scared, so she grabbed Justin's hand and started running for her life. What are you doing? Said Justin. I saw something, said Ava. Who cares? We're going to be late to school, said an upset Justin. They both walked the rest of the way to school. When they made it into the school building, Ava went to her 5th grade classroom, and Justin went to his 6th grade classroom. Ava sat in her seat, still troubled by what she had seen. As Ava was trying to shake off what happened earlier, she heard a tap against the window. She turned and saw a shadow outside the window. Ding, ding! The bell rang and the shadow disappeared again. School was over. Justin and Ava met up to talk before they went home after their after-school activities. By the time their activities were over and started walking back to their house, it was becoming dark outside, and Ava started to get a strange feeling. She turned around and saw a shadow again. "Run!" screamed Ava. "Stop, Ava. There's nothing to be scared of," said Justin. But, no buts, said Justin. The man got closer and closer. Ava couldn't listen to Justin anymore and started bolting down the street. By the time Ava arrived at her house, she was completely out of breath. "Are you okay?" asked her mother. I'm fine. Thanks for asking," said Ava, as she didn't want to frighten her mother. "Where's Justin?" asked Mom. "He's on his way," replied Ava. When Justin arrived home, he told his mother he was fine. They all ate dinner together and went to bed. That night, while Ava was sleeping, the back door opened. Since she was already on edge, she sprung up from her bed and went downstairs. She saw a man outside. He was coming closer and closer and had something in his hand. When she got closer to the door, she saw that it was Justin. "Hey, I'm sorry for what I said earlier," he said. "It's okay," replied Ava, who was shaking. "Why do you seem so scared?" asked Justin. "Because I saw something outside." "What did it look like?" "It looked like Dad," said Ava. "That's impossible." "I know." Justin said goodnight and left the room. Ava was confused as to why she thought she saw her dad. Justin looks nothing like him. Ava gave up and went back to sleep, trying to convince her mind that everything was okay. She woke up, still sleepy and confused from the night before. When she went to the kitchen for breakfast, no one was home. As she started to walk past the kitchen, she saw a man standing outside. "What do you want?" She screamed as loud as she could, hoping to wake up her family. "You and your brother," replied the man. "Why do you want us?" "Because Bang! He was caught in a trap that was hanging from the roof. Justin had discussed what was happening to Ava with his mother. His mother had a sneaky suspicion that her husband had been alive this whole time, as she had been seeing things too. "Mom, Justin, I'm so happy to see you," said Ava. "How did you know?" she asked. "Justin told me," said Mom. While Ava and Mom were talking, Justin went over to the trap. He peered in and saw the man. "It's Dad," Justin said to himself. "Mom, Ava, the guy's Dad," said Justin in tears. Ava and Mom came over, also in tears. Justin went inside to call the cops. "Wait, don't call the cops. Let's talk first," said Dad. He explained how he was kidnapped, but the person who took him was his friend from childhood. He was able to escape and disappear for a few years. He had been following the family ever since. Deep down, Justin knew something was still wrong. He called the police. The police showed up and took their father away for questioning. As the police were opening the car door, their father turned around and winked at them. Ava, Justin, and their mother stood there in silence, with chills going down their arms. The end.
Hello, this is Erin Entrada Kelly, author of many books, including Hello Universe and Lalani of the Distant Sea. And today, I am here to read you a frightening tale by an incredible author named Emma Poblocki. Emma is 12 years old and lives in Hong Kong. And the story is called Old Neighbors. I hope you're not afraid of spiders. I couldn't see them, but I knew they were there. The spiders had crept into the bedroom and were slowly crawling towards my bed. I could hear their pincers open and close. My racing heartbeat had left my chest and was now thumping in my throat. I wanted to scream, but my mouth stayed closed. These were not the tiny spiders you usually see in dark corners of an empty attic. They were the size of a bulldog, and they were here for me. It seemed incredible that only a few hours ago I was unpacking in my old family house. The house was dusty and old. The walls were covered in mildew. The air smelled stale like an attic. Horrid, gigantic cobwebs dangled in the corners. No one had lived here for decades. After 20 years spent moving from one foster home to another, I was finally coming back home. I don't remember my mother and father. They disappeared when I was only 6. One morning, I woke up and they were gone. No goodbye or see you later. They just vanished into thin air, and I never heard from them since. As I was moving back into the house, an elderly woman came up slowly to my door. She watched me in silence while I was carrying the boxes inside the house. She looked vaguely familiar, but I could not recall from where. Maybe it was just an old neighbor. "You don't belong here, pet. This house is no place for somebody like you. You should leave before sundown," she said, without any bitterness. I glared at her. What do you know about me? Something told me she knew much more than I could remember. Something in her look sent a shiver down my spine. She looked old and harmless, but there was some wickedness in her eyes. She was wearing a black dress. Her hands were covered in black gloves. Her hair was gray and pulled back in a bun, covered with a net that looked like a cobweb. I think I even saw a tiny spider crawling over it. I hate spiders. I've hated them ever since I can remember. Our house attic was always swarming with spiders, small, black-haired, crawling out from the shadows on their 8 hairy legs. I used to hunt the nasty little creatures. I would put them in a jar and screw the lid on. I would look at them crawl over each other. The crawling would eventually come to a stop after a few hours. When I got older, I went to study entomology. Everyone in my class was crazy about insects. They thought spiders were cute. Not me. I was there to learn all I could about spiders so that I could one day find a way to exterminate them all. After years of study, I was now at the brink of discovering a poison to do just that. "That's not a polite way to talk to your neighbor," she said, raising an eyebrow. I snapped back to the present. Who said I wanted to be polite? I felt my blood rushing to my face. "My grandchildren will be here soon, and you'll regret not listening to me," she said softly. "I don't see anyone here. It seems your grandkids only exist in your head," I shouted as I slammed the door in her face. She remained standing in front of my door for a while, murmuring something to herself. I could see her through the glass panes, her frail outline dark against the setting sun coming from behind her. I should have invited her in and gotten to know her better. I should have asked about her children and grandchildren. I should have asked if she remembered my parents and whether they were good neighbors. It's too late now. I could feel their hairy legs brushing on my cheeks. The clicking of their pincers filled my thoughts. They were all over me now. A quick pinch and I could no longer move. Their venom paralyzed me. No spider-killing poison could help me now. There was one more pinch, and then everything went dark and silent. Happy Halloween.
Hello, I am Michael Northrup. I am the author of 13 novels, including the very scary horror novel, Polaris, and the equally scary survival novel, Surrounded by Sharks, and the not at all scary, but still very fun graphic novel, Dear Justice League. But today I am going to be reading someone else's story. It's a really cool story. This one is by Logan T. He is 11 years old and he's from Alberta, Canada. So really good story, a little scary, so I'm going to get right to it. Z Portal. The green portal was calling to Cleo. She couldn't resist. She had to know what was on the other side. Just as Cleo started to take the exciting step towards the glowing green ring, a loud buzzing sound startled her awake. Cleo shot up in bed. Her alarm clock read 8 a.m. Groggy with sleep, rubbing her eyes, still in shock from her dream, she pulled off her blankets. Feeling the ice-cold floor under her feet, she slides on her favorite unicorn slippers. Running down the hall, Cleo yelled, "Mom, I just had the weirdest dream. It was so freaky." "Oh, that's weird, Cleo. Maybe it's from all the spooky Halloween shows you've been watching. Breakfast is ready. You hungry?" "Yes, super hungry." "Good. Take a seat at the table. I'll grab you a plate." Cleo scarfed down her plate of bacon and eggs and asked for a second helping. She knew it was probably best to eat a hearty meal before she consumed her entire bag of Halloween candy later that night. Once breakfast was over, Cleo told her mom she was going to call her best friends, Leo, Jesse, and Barbara, to go over their plans for the night. "Is everyone ready?" Jesse asked. Right as the group was walking out the door, they heard a loud sound followed by a high-pitched scream. Startled, they turned their heads towards the sound as a group of teenagers came running down the street, frantically yelling and pale white. Cleo was so focused on the teenagers sprinting by until Barbara elbowed her in the side, pointing to the dark figures staggering out of the alley. As the figures stumbled into the street light, Barbara could make out 3 key features. The monsters were plump with wilting faces and had candy wrappers stuck to their hands. "Holy chicken McNuggets!" Cleo called out. "What are those things? They look like zombies." Anxiously, Leo says, "This has to be a joke, right? Those have to be costumes." All 4 of them stared as they noticed the zombies mouthing something but couldn't make out what they were saying. "Shh!" Cleo hushed just as their mouths starting to move again. "Candy." Zombies were crawling the streets, destroying Halloween decorations, devouring any candy left out for trick-or-treaters. It wasn't long before they noticed Cleo and her friends and started moving in their direction. "Run! Get back inside," Cleo said. Zombies were all over the TV. Every newscast was covering the monsters. Halloween was ruined. Cleo and her friends knew they needed to find a way to help, so they turned to the internet. While researching how to get rid of zombies, they came across a feed where people were reporting seeing a large, glowing circle hovering behind the local supermarket. "That's it," yelled Leo. "It's a portal." "The zombies are coming from a different dimension. This may be our only way to get rid of these horrid creatures," Cleo exclaimed. They each grabbed a backpack, stuffing it full of candy, making sure to add a little extra to snack on themselves. They snuck out the back door, quietly hoping Cleo's mom wouldn't hear them as they set off on their bikes. "Guys, I really don't think we should be doing this," Leo said. "Aw, don't back down now, Leo," Barbara said sarcastically. Riding to the supermarket, they realized just how many zombies flooded the street, making them nervous, thinking perhaps they should abort their mission. Approaching the parking lot, they could already see a bright green glow coming from behind the supermarket and knew the reports must be right. "So are we actually going to go behind the building and check this thing out?" Leo says nervously. They all yelled, "Yes, Leo," at the same time. Jesse sighs. "I have an idea. I know how we can get rid of these things." They all looked in his direction. "What's your plan?" Cleo asks. "Well, Leo may not like this idea, but we need to get all the zombies back here in order to guide them back into the portal. Leo's the fastest on his bike. What if he rode around town playing ice cream truck music on his phone while yelling, "Free candy"? Maybe they will follow? It's worth a shot, says Barbara. Leo, you up for this? Sure. No, wait. Okay, maybe, yeah, I can do this, right? Leo jumps on his bike, music blaring from his phone speakers, and makes his way through the town yelling, "Free candy!" Surprisingly, not long after, Leo notices more and more zombies trailing behind. Not missing a street, Leo peeks over his shoulder, seeing just how large the horde has become. Shaking nervously, he keeps pedaling at the perfect pace back towards the store. Cleo peeks around the corner of the building, seeing the enormous horde trailing behind little old Leo on his bike. She sprints back to the others and yells, "Get ready! They're coming!" Jesse and Barbara stiffen, taking their positions. "Start throwing the candy into the portal on my command," says Cleo. The closer the zombies get, the louder it is. Candy. Cleo knows it's time. "Now," she yells as they start digging into their backpacks, chucking mini treats into the eye of the portal. The first zombie starts following the flying candy into the portal as Leo yells, "It's working!" "Don't stop," Jesse says as more and more zombies follow the first. Cleo finds herself drawn to the portal. Oh no. Cleo finds herself drawn to the portal, almost as if it's pulling her in. Without trying, Cleo's feet start slowly moving towards the glowing ring. The last thing Cleo's friends hear her say is, "Guys, I don't feel so good," right before she steps through and the portal closes with a loud zwamp. So that is Z Portal. Fantastic story by Logan T. I hope you enjoyed it, and of course, I hope you have a happy Halloween.
I am getting very sleepy. I better take these things off. Whew. Hi. My name is Dan Poblocki, and I am here to read a short story for you guys today. I am the author of several books for young readers. I'm the author of Shadow House, the series. This is book 1 in the series. There are 4 of them, about a bunch of kids trapped in a haunted house in the Hudson Valley. I am the author of The Ghost of Greylock, about some kids who break into a haunted psychiatric hospital, and one of the ghosts there follows them home. And my newest book, which I'm very, very proud of and very excited to share with you, is called Ghost Hunter's Daughter, about a girl whose father is a ghost hunter on television, and when he goes missing, she has to track him down in a very, very haunted old town. So that's who I am, and I would like to start the story that I was given to read. This is a story by Waverly Winchester, who is 12 years old and from New York City. And the title of this very, very creepy story, which I love, is called You're Dead, Jackson. Ugh, complained Yada as she walked down the stairs, trembling with anger. Yada, please, just have some common sense. I rubbed the temples of my forehead. You are always causing unnecessary fights. Yada turned around slowly, more mad than ever. Well, Jackson, maybe we wouldn't be fighting all the time if you learned to clean up after yourself. You pig! Just then, I decided I couldn't take it anymore. Mom, I called, knowing she was Yada's worst fear. As our mom came up the stairs, Yada looked at me with eyes that said, You're dead, Jackson. That night, at dinner, we all described our favorite parts of the day. It was all going normal until the middle of Yada's turn. She started screaming. And I don't mean just any little scream. She was screaming more than bloody murder. I tried to cover my ears, but I couldn't move at all. After a couple minutes of this, everything went back to normal, and Yada started sharing again. My mom noticed me staring at Yada, so she asked me, "Is everything okay, sweetie?" I gaped at her. How did she not notice what just happened? "Did you see what just happened to Yada?" I asked, slightly terrified. "Nothing happened, Jackson," said Mom. "Don't prank me." I decided to just brush it off, thinking this was just some practical joke. Because Yada was being mean earlier, she didn't get to have her phone for the night, which was also punishment for me because usually she would always bug me by asking to see my phone. But tonight, she just sat on her bed and stared at me. A couple hours passed, and she didn't stop staring. I asked, "Can I help you?" She stared back and muttered, "You're dead, Jackson." I was slightly creeped out, but I just got back to watching YouTube. At around 11 p.m., I decided to go to bed. I tucked myself in, but that's when I realized that Yada wasn't there anymore. I thought it was strange since I didn't hear the door open, but I concluded that I was just so interested in the video I was watching that I didn't see her go out. I fell asleep pretty fast after that. Around 2 a.m., I felt breathing on my face. I thought it was just my dog, but then I heard whispering. It was very faint, but it was there. I didn't know whether to open my eyes or not, but I wanted the adventure, so I slowly, very slowly opened them. There was nothing there. I sat up and looked at the wall next to me. It said, written in red paint, "You're dead, Jackson." I ran across the room, not taking my eyes off the message, when I noticed something under my bed, a white figure. At first, it seemed blurry, but then it came into focus. It was a white face, tilted to the side, wearing a creepy smile, full of dirty teeth. He had no eyes. He had no hair. I wasn't even sure he had a body. He pushed himself slightly forward and repeated the same phrase. "You're dead, Jackson. You're dead. You're dead, Jackson. You're dead." Over and over. I gasped and reached for the doorknob, but there was nothing there. When I looked over, I saw there was no door. The creature came closer, but he changed. He morphed into something else, something taller, something scarier. He was about 9 feet tall now, and he had a skinny build. He had that same smile, but bloodier, creepier. I didn't know if I could trust him. Time stood still. My breathing got heavier. I decided I wanted this all to end, so I looked up and dried my crying eyes. There was nothing there. I looked around, and I was in my normal room. No monsters, no writing on the wall, just my regular room. I breathed out a sigh of relief. My eyes felt heavy, and they closed as soon as my head hit the pillow. I woke up suddenly and sat upright in bed. My head hit the ceiling. Ouch. I looked up fast, confused. Did I grow last night? I looked around and noticed everything had a weird red tint to it. I walked out of my bedroom door, but I had to bend down when I got to it. I went downstairs and went to sit in my usual chair, but somebody was already in it. I was. At least, it looked like me. I was so confused. I looked at my parents, but they were just acting like everything was normal. I kept looking at my replica, but then I looked down at my hands, scared something would happen if I looked at my replica any longer. But I came across something even scarier. My hands, they were long and leathery. They looked like a monster's hands. I gasped and quickly ran to a mirror. I had a huge smile plastered on my face, a million eyes all across my forehead. I felt something change. I looked down, frightened about what I was going to see. My arms. I was growing, so many. They were sprouting all over me. I screamed insanely loud, but so did my replica. Seeing that made me scream even more. He kept screaming, I kept screaming, and I noticed my sister looking at the other me very confused, just like I looked at her yesterday. My parents just kept eating normally, though. I suddenly felt such hate for Yara, such strong hate that I was trembling. I smiled and rehearsed the lines I knew I would be saying later. You're dead, Yara. So I love that story by Waverly Winchester. So happy that I was able to read that for you and to you. Again, my name is Dan Poblocki, and my latest book is Ghost Hunter's Daughter. I'm so happy to have been able to participate in this project with all of you, and I wish you the most exciting and spooky Halloween.
Wow, that's it. That's a wrap. That's everything that we got. The top 22 stories from the writing contest for kids. That was our main event for carve-con. What a way to go out, and what an amazing few months this has been. And I'll tell you, when I came up with the idea and decided, sure, let's go with it, let's go for it, I never knew what this whole process was going to look like, as this is the first event that I've ever created or done anything like this. So I hope that all of you have enjoyed what we've created. We wanted to make a memorable Halloween for kids all over the place. And I hope that in seeing all of these great stories, all of the other videos from carve-con, you and your family were able to have an enjoyable Halloween. And it's gonna be different, but hopefully a really good different. So I can't thank all of the authors who participated in this writing contest enough. My editor, one of the FrightVision editors, for getting involved and for reading another one of the kids' stories. And it was just an amazing, amazing night. And I hope that all of you young people are inspired to write stories for yourself on your own time and for other contests like this. And stay tuned, because FrightVision is going to have a few more tricks up their sleeves in the coming months. So I hope you'll all check out the FrightVision book series. They're available everywhere: Amazon, Barnes & Noble. We do also have an Etsy store where we have some cool deals on signed books. If that's what you're interested in, they can be signed out to your kids personally. And so I hope that you'll check that out and check out all of the other authors and their books as well. If you go to the FrightVision website, www.frightvisionbooks.com, there is a link to carve-con on there, and when you click on it, it shows you all of the people that were involved in any way with our carve-con event. So when you click on their picture, it gives you how you find out more information about them. So I hope all of you do that, because everyone has just been so amazing to work with. And for the last time, thank you. So to everyone else out there, I hope you have a happy and safe Halloween. And as I always like to say, happy nightmares.